Nobody wants to pay more for gas than they have to. And if you own a Toyota 4Runner, you've probably stood at the pump at some point and stared at those three buttons, 87, 91, 93, and wondered if the more expensive fuel is actually doing anything for your truck, or if you're just handing extra money to the gas station for no reason. It's one of the most common questions I get from Toyota 4x4 owners. Should I run premium? Does it actually make a difference? Is 87 going to hurt my engine? What's the real answer? So we decided to stop guessing and actually test it. Same 4Runner, same driver, same routes. 3 different fuel grades, run back-to-back under real conditions. City driving, highway cruising, and a loaded pull-up a long grade to simulate towing. We tracked fuel economy, throttle response, engine temperature, and how each fuel grade actually felt behind the wheel. And here's what I'll tell you right now. The results were not what I expected going in. One of these fuel grades delivered a clear, measurable advantage that showed up in every single test condition. And one of them, the one a lot of 4Runner owners default to, produced results that should make you rethink what you're putting in your tank. Stay with me because the highway test result in particular caught me completely off guard. We'll get to that. Let's get into it. First, how the 4Runner's engine actually works with different fuel grades. Before we get to the results, you need to understand what's actually happening inside your engine when you change fuel grades. Because without this, the numbers won't make full sense. The 4Runner's 4.0-liter 1GR FEV6, the engine that's been in the 4Runner since 2003 and is one of the most proven power plants Toyota has ever built, is rated by Toyota to run on 87 octane regular unleaded as its minimum fuel requirement. The owner's manual says regular is acceptable, and a lot of owners stop reading right there. But here's what that sentence actually means. The engine is designed with a knock sensor, a small device that listens for detonation, also called knock or ping, inside the combustion chambers. Detonation is what happens when the air-fuel mixture ignites before the spark plug fires, creating an uncontrolled explosion that sends pressure waves slamming against the piston and cylinder walls. It's damaging, it robs power, and it gets worse under load and heat. When the knock sensor detects detonation, which it does constantly, many times per second, it signals the engine control unit to retard the ignition timing. Pulling the timing back reduces the tendency to knock, but it also reduces power output and efficiency. The engine is protecting itself, but it's doing it by giving up performance. Higher octane fuel resists detonation better. That's the only thing octane rating measures, resistance to premature ignition. A higher octane fuel lets the engine run its timing more aggressively without knocking, which means more complete combustion, more power from each cylinder firing, and better efficiency. So when Toyota says 87 is the minimum, they mean the engine won't damage itself on 87. They do not mean 87 is optimal. That's the distinction that drove our entire test. The test setup. We used a 2019 Toyota 4Runner TRD off-road with the 4.0-liter V6 and approximately 67,000 miles on the clock. No recent modifications. Fresh oil change with full synthetic before the test began. Tires at factory spec pressure. Same driver for every run. We ran 3 test scenarios with each fuel grade. The first was a 30-mile city loop, stop and go, traffic lights, moderate acceleration, speeds between 25 and 45 miles per hour. We ran this loop 3 times per fuel grade and averaged the results. The second was a 40-mile highway segment, steady cruise at 70 miles per hour, minimal traffic, flat terrain. 3 runs per fuel grade averaged. The third was our load test, a 15-mile pull up a sustained 6% grade with 800 pounds of payload in the truck bed, simulating a real-world towing or hauling scenario. 2 runs per fuel grade. Between each fuel grade, we ran the tank completely down and refilled with the new grade. then drove 20 miles before beginning data collection to allow the engine management system to fully adapt its fuel trims and timing maps to the new fuel. We tracked miles per gallon using both the truck's onboard computer and manual calculation at each fill. We also monitored intake air temperature, engine coolant temperature, and short-term fuel trim data through an OBD2 scanner running throughout every test. Here's what we found. 87 octane, the baseline results. Starting with 87, the minimum grade Toyota specifies for the 1GR FE. City driving on 87 returned an average of 15.3 miles per gallon across our 3 loops. Throttle response felt adequate but not crisp. There was a slight hesitation at moderate acceleration that became more noticeable when merging or passing. Nothing alarming, but it was there. On the highway, 87 returned 21.8 miles per gallon at steady 70 miles per hour cruise. The engine ran smoothly at constant speed, which makes sense. Light throttle, low load, minimal knock risk. Highway is where 87 performs closest to its potential because the engine isn't being pushed hard enough to trigger significant knock sensor intervention. On the grade test with payload, 87 showed its biggest weakness. To maintain speed up the grade, the engine needed more throttle. More throttle means more load, higher cylinder pressure, and more heat. Exactly the conditions where detonation risk increases. Our OBD2 scanner showed short-term fuel, trim pulling rich, and timing retard events becoming frequent and sustained in the upper half of the grade. The engine was fighting itself. Average fuel economy on the grade test with 87, 11.2 miles per gallon. And the engine was working noticeably harder to achieve even that, higher RPM than we saw with the other fuel grades at the same speed and load. 87 is fine on flat ground at light load. Under stress, you feel the engine management system pulling punches. 91. Octane, where things get interesting. Stepping up to 91, the mid-grade option, the difference showed up faster than I expected. City driving on 91 returned 16.1 miles per gallon, a gain of 0.8 miles per gallon over 87 on the same loop. That's a meaningful improvement in stop-and-go conditions, where the engine is constantly accelerating from low speed and the knock sensor is most active. Throttle response was noticeably crisper. The hesitation we felt with 87 during moderate acceleration was gone. On the highway, 91 returned 22.6 miles per gallon, a gain of 0.8 miles per gallon over 87. At steady cruise, the difference was smaller than in city driving, which makes sense. At constant light throttle, 87 was already close to optimal. But 91 still edged it out because the engine was able to hold slightly more aggressive timing without knock events. On the grade test, 91 made the most dramatic difference. Average fuel economy on the grade, 13.1 miles per gallon, nearly 2 full miles per gallon better than 87 under the same load and conditions. More importantly, the timing retard events our scanner was tracking dropped significantly. The engine was pulling less rich fuel trim correction. It was running closer to its designed ignition map and doing it more comfortably. The grade pull felt different from the driver's seat too. Less sense of the engine straining. Power delivery was more linear. The truck didn't drop RPM as dramatically when we crested the steeper sections of the grade. 91 was a clear step forward from 87 across every test condition. The question was whether 93 would continue that trend or hit a point of diminishing returns. 93 octane, the premium question. Here's where it gets nuanced and where the results surprised me most. City driving on 93 returned 16.4 miles per gallon, a gain of 0.3 miles per gallon over 91 and 1.1 miles per gallon over 87. The improvement over 91 was real, but smaller than the jump from 87 to 91. Throttle response on 93 felt identical to 91. Crisp, immediate, no hesitation. On the highway, 93 returned 22.9 miles per gallon, essentially identical to 91 within the margin of measurement variation. At steady light load cruise, the 1GR-FE simply doesn't produce enough cylinder pressure to benefit significantly from the extra knock resistance that 93 provides over 91. The engine's timing map was already close to optimal on 91 at highway speeds. On the grade test, 93 returned 13.4 miles per gallon, a gain of 0.3 miles per gallon over 91 and 2.2 miles per gallon over 87. The timing retard events dropped even further compared to 91, and the engine temperature ran a measurable 1 to 2 degrees cooler on average during the sustained climb. Under maximum load and heat, 93 did provide a real advantage, but a smaller one than the jump from 87 to 91 delivered. Here's the bottom line on 93. It is better than 91, but it is not dramatically better. The biggest gains in this engine come from making the jump from 87 to 91. Going from 91 to 93 gives you a real but noticeably smaller return, and at a higher price per gallon. The real-world math. Does premium actually pay for itself? This is the question that matters most for most owners. The performance gains are real, but does the math work out? Let's use current average national prices as our baseline. At the time of this test, 87 averaged $3.29 per gallon, 91 averaged $3.69 per gallon, and 93 averaged $3.89 per gallon. The 4Runner's tank holds 23 gallons. At 15,000 miles per year, and our measured fuel economy numbers for primarily mixed city and highway driving, here's how the annual fuel cost breaks down. On 87, at an average of 18.5 miles per gallon combined, you'd use approximately 811 gallons per year. At $3.29, that's $2,668 annually. On 91, at an average of 19.3 miles per gallon combined, you'd use approximately 777 gallons per year. At $3.69, that's $2,867 annually. That's $199 more per year than 87. On 93, at an average of 19.6 miles per gallon combined, you'd use approximately 765 gallons per year. At $3.89, that's $2,976 annually. That's $308 more per year than 87 and $109 more than 91. So running 91 costs approximately $199 more per year than 87. Running 93 costs approximately $109 more per year than 91. But here's what those numbers don't capture. The engine on 87 is running more timing retard events, more rich fuel corrections, and more heat accumulation under load every single time you push it. That's wear happening inside your engine that doesn't show up in a fuel economy spreadsheet. It shows up in your engine's condition at 200,000 miles versus 350,000 miles. For a truck, you're trying to run past 300,000 miles, $199 per year is not an expensive insurance policy. So, what's the verdict? Here it is, straight up. If you drive your 4Runner mostly on flat roads, light loads, and easy highway miles, 87 will not hurt your engine. The knock sensor will manage it, but you're leaving performance and some efficiency on the table. And under any real stress, the engine is constantly managing detonation it doesn't have to deal with on higher octane fuel. If you tow, haul, go off-road, drive in heat, or simply want your 4Runner performing the way it was engineered to perform, 91 is the clear winner. The jump from 87 to 91 delivered the most significant improvement across every single test condition. Better fuel economy, better throttle response, less engine stress under load, lower operating temperatures on the grade test. The gains were real and consistent. 93 is better than 91, but the gap between them is noticeably smaller than the gap between 87 and 91. If you're already running 91, Switching to 93 is a small incremental gain. If 93 is only marginally more expensive at your local stations, it's worth it. But if 91 is your readily available mid-grade, it's where you want to be. The clear winner is 91. Not because the manual requires it, it doesn't. Because the 1GR-FE engine in the 4Runner is built to respond to it, and every test condition we ran confirmed that. One more thing before you go. How you fuel your 4Runner is one piece of the long-term ownership picture, but it's just one piece. If you're serious about keeping a Toyota 4x4 running strong past 300,000 miles, every fluid, every service interval, every system, the 500,000-mile car maintenance blueprint in the description below is the complete guide. It covers everything from oil to differentials to the maintenance decisions that separate the trucks that make it to 400,000 miles from the ones that don't. If you own a 4Runner or any Toyota 4x4, it belongs in your hands. If you found these tips helpful, be sure to watch this next video as we're sharing insider tips to help you cut repair costs and keep your car running like new.